The Downtown Rams podcast is brought to you today by Draft. Looking for the best fantasy sports site on the planet? Sign up with Draft today. For a limited time only, our listeners will receive $3 matching their first deposit of at least $10. Use promo code DTR or visit draft.com/DTR to sign up now. Draft. Fantasy for the people. Now enjoy the show.
Caught by Brandon Cooks. Shoot your arrows. Cooper Kupp plucks it out of the air and gives the Rams the lead. Robert Wood, touchdown. LA. Goff goes crashing into the end zone. Aaron Donald almost beat the football there. Corey Littleton, have yourself a day. Picked off. Marcus Peters coming off the edge. And Ryan will be wrapped up by Clay Matthews. Everett in stride. Wow.
Franklin Myers gets his hand down there.
Weddle got a hand on it. Did he pick it? He did! Racing down the sideline is Akeem Talib. Gurley for MVP! Touchdown LA! Picked off by John Johnson. Well, it's Dante Fowler who is able to get to Breeze. Greg Zuerlein sends the Rams to the Super Bowl! LA will play for the Lombardi!
Welcome back, guys, to another Downtown Rams podcast. It's episode 241. I'm your host, Jake Ellenbogen, and joining me is nobody because it's going to be a quick podcast. Alexis is unable to make it, and basically what we're going to do is we're going to do a rapid reaction every Sunday night. I'm going to be doing a quick rapid reaction. Alexis and I will break it down on Monday. We're going to break down every single game. If you like what you hear, be sure to subscribe and leave a review wherever you get your podcasts. And lastly, just so you know, the Rams won. They did. They won the first game of the 2019 season. Super Bowl hangover. I mean, it could still be in effect, but it definitely didn't affect them today. They fought through, obviously, they battled through adversity. Obviously, they showed some up and downs here and there, but, all in all, when you go on the road and you're able to pick up a win the way they were, definitely impressive. They didn't get the best contributions out of Jared Goff. They did not get the best contributions out of the offensive line. Last year's Built Ford Tough Offensive Line of the Year, of course, had Roger Saffold and John Sullivan on that, and those two did not return to this team this season. And so basically now you look at it, and it's basically two first-year starters. You have, obviously, Brian Allen in the center position, and then, of course, you have Joseph Noteboom, former third-round pick out of TCU. And, I thought Noteboom played relatively well. I thought really the offensive line wasn't horrible, but it was really tough to run the football early on in the first half. And in my opinion, I was not really thoroughly impressed with the right side of the offensive line. I wasn't really thoroughly impressed with Brian Allen. I think Noteboom and Whitworth played the best. Havenstein was big with the fumble recovery in the red zone that Todd Gurley coughed up. But aside from that, I thought he struggled, and I definitely thought Blythe struggled. When you look at the wide receiver position, I thought it was kind of your usual, Robert Woods getting open, being able to create separation, not only create separation, but make plays after the catch. And, of course, come down with the catch. He had a couple really nice grabs. Cooper Kupp was, kind of sitting in the soft spot in the zone. And, he came down with, 7 grabs for 46 yards. Not really a great average, but he was definitely a security blanket for Jared Goff. Obviously Todd Gurley got involved in the running game. He only had 1 catch for 4 yards. The screen wasn't really going to work in this one. I know people were kind of confused by that, and the reason is it's really based on what Carolina provides. So, the Panthers basically, they set aside a game plan to keep everything out in front of them. They were not going to get beat over the top. They played over the top very well. They forced Jared Goff to make decisions underneath, and basically what that did was, obviously they could double team guys. They could, try some crazy stuff, try and mix things up, create just chaos for Jared Goff, and I think it worked. I think it was a good game plan by Ron Rivera's Carolina Panthers. I really do. I think this defense is very good. Their front seven from top to bottom is very impressive. And obviously we knew that coming in. I mean, you look at guys like Luke Kuechly, Shaq Thompson, Kawan Short, Dontari Poe, and of course they added Gerald McCoy. And then you have guys like Brian Burns that, came in and were able to get a tackle for a loss. They have F.A. Obata, and they have Mario Addison. So there's a lot of talent, in that group. Their secondary, albeit it's not the greatest, but I do like James Bradbury. I really like Dante Jackson, and I felt as though that Trey Boston was around the ball a lot. He has a nose for the football. Eric Reed also is talented in that secondary. Of course, as we know, not only did James Bradbury have a sack, but James Bradbury came down with an interception. They forced Goff into a turnover. But all in all, the Rams come away with this one 30-27. Definitely, happy to get the win. Obviously Jared Goff 23 of 39, not the worst, but 186 yards, 4.8 yards per completion is just not really where you would expect it to be. A touchdown, interception. He had only one sack, and he had 69 passer rating. It's one of his worst performances I think that he's had, and I don't think he's had too many, and I think really that's why. I was definitely impressed, though, with his ability to stay in this one. Things got tough. He got rattled a little bit. But I'll tell you right now, Jared Goff, and there's a reason why he's the franchise quarterback. There's a reason why the Rams paid him long term, and it's for the simple fact that Jared Goff continues to fight. This is not somebody that's going to give in. You saw it obviously in the Super Bowl the last time you saw him play. Obviously it wasn't the greatest performance, and he faced a ton of pressure, but at the end of the day, I know he threw an interception, but what can you ask for him to throw, a beautiful pass? And regardless if you think it's PI or not, Brandon Cooks didn't come down with it. That should have tied the game in the Super Bowl late in the Super Bowl. So he marched down the field and put the Rams in position. So you can't really fault him for that. But kind of similar to this game, the defense came up with a huge stop in the fourth quarter, got the punt. Goff and the Rams kind of, drove down the field really at will. Todd Gurley started to really feel himself. They ran a nice a run play. It was really cool play design where they kind of faked it to the left and misdirection to the right, and it was taken by Robert Woods for 20. So they definitely had those type of plays, and that drive was huge because they capped it off. There's a great pass near the sideline by Goff to Woods that set up a Tyler Higbee touchdown. And that was really the drive that won them the game. Carolina, on the other hand, had Christian McCaffrey, and he went absolutely off. 10 catches, 81 yards. He had 128 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns on 19 carries. Believe it or not, as great as that sounds, Todd Gurley, the guy that everyone is worried about health-wise, he actually had a better yards per carry than Christian McCaffrey. 6.9. Todd Gurley ran 14 times for 97 yards, and Malcolm Brown ran 11 times for 53 yards, which comes out to be a 4.8 yards per carry, which is pretty good average, and he had 2 touchdowns. So it'll be interesting to see how they split the carries moving forward. I would imagine, this is a team that, could really use Brown, use Darrell Richardson, or Darrell Henderson, excuse me, and really just at the end of the day, try to provide Todd Gurley with the ability to obviously come in and capitalize on his snaps, because if they're going to be limited, you want them to hit them big, and I think that's what they did in this one. But really, all in all, this is somebody you want to keep relatively fresh for January and February, because you have to expect that they'll be playing in February. That's the kind of team that they are. They should be there. If they're not there, in my opinion, it is a disappointment. But again, obviously, offense wasn't perfect. It was a rusty first game, but anytime you win a game like that on the road against a team that was 7-2 to start last year, kind of fell off the wagon, they're still a very talented football team. They have a great defense. The offensive line really was battle-tested in this one, and, obviously, I think they're going to have some games that are kind of like this, but you're not going to go up against a defensive line that has Dontari Poe and, Gerald McCoy and Kawan Short on the daily. You're just not. So, I think it's a good test early on for this offensive line. Hopefully they learn from their mistakes and, move on to the Saints game next week. I do want to touch on the defense because we're talking so much about offense and the Panthers defense, but the Rams defense was great. If I'm giving the game ball to anybody, it's to Corey Littleton, who came down 14 tackles, 2 pass breakups. He had a interception, a forced fumble, and a fumble recovery. If that's not your player of the game, I don't know who is. Very impressed with what he was able to do today. Then you look at John Johnson. He had 11 tackles, had a tackle for a loss. Dante Fowler, absolutely, in my opinion, and I saw there's some people out there who would probably disagree with me, but I think Dante Fowler has kind of, unleashed a little bit. He's this is the former 3rd overall pick in the draft that he was taken in. He's 25 years old. There's a reason why the Rams made the trade for him. Got phased out of Jacksonville, because of guys like Yannick Ngakoue and the signing of Calais Campbell. And albeit they're great pass rushers, they didn't really try to develop Dante Fowler, who also missed his rookie year, worth noting, due to a season-ending injury. So now Fowler comes to the Rams. He only had 4 sacks last year, big deal, because this year he starts off with 2. Probably could have had 4 if this wasn't really a mobile quarterback in Cam Newton, but I was very impressed with Dante Fowler. The ability to, obviously, he can bend off the edge. He's got all the speed in the world. He's very, very, very athletic. But what I love about Fowler in this one, and the big thing that stood out to me, was that he wasn't just using his athleticism. You remember, obviously, the days of Robert Quinn, people would be like, all right, when is he going to use another move besides a speed rush, and try to get to the outside quicker than everybody else? Well, Fowler found his way around a bull rush move, and he's created a pass rush plan that is going to benefit him long term. He's somebody that's not going to go in unprepared. I think Fowler really took the next step in this game. I think you're seeing it, but I think this year is going to be a year where Fowler could rack up 15 sacks. One thing that I also want to bring up is Clay Matthews. Everyone was saying how Clay Matthews is a wash and it's going to be hard to get him going. Clay Matthews looked really good, and now he not only got a sack and he had a tackle for a loss, he was so good in contain. And I think, when you're an edge defender, right, people oftentimes use the term edge rusher. Edge rusher is true, but an edge defender is more likely what you want to use. And the reason for that is because you do more than just rush the passer. And Clay Matthews today, in the run defense, he was great. He set the edge. He definitely was great. Guys that struggled in my mind, Bryce Hager, only 4 tackles as a middle linebacker, and he couldn't get off his blocks. And I think that was a big issue. Eric Weddle had a really nasty injury, which was kind of bizarre because he had a helmet on, but took a laceration to the head after a knee from a jumping Christian McCaffrey. If you didn't see it, I recommend seeing it because I don't know how to really describe. I can't describe it. In reality, I just don't understand how he had the cut. Maybe he was mic'd up and there was a mic in his helmet or something. I don't really even know, but he was bleeding everywhere and it was not good. So it looks like he's going to be okay. He'll be in the concussion protocol with reason. But shout out to obviously him. He was definitely rooting for his teammates. He got carted off for that reason, was in the locker room tweeting and wishing his teammates well. Speaking of safeties, though, Taylor Rapp with 8 tackles in his rookie debut. It was a pretty good day for Taylor Rapp. Had a couple huge stops on third down, and I definitely liked the way he moves. He didn't test particularly well at his pro day, and he ran a 4.7, and I think that's one of the reasons people kind of gave up on him. When you look at other guys that can run 4.3s, like an Eddie Jackson that could really cover all over the field, it's hard to get excited about a 4.7 guy, right? Well, wrong, because you can't teach just instincts. And that's really what, Taylor Rapp has. Taylor Rapp is somebody that just gets it. He's got a football feel for the game, and you can see it. He operates extremely well around the line of scrimmage, and this is going to be somebody that will be a piece for this defense for years to come. So I'm excited, obviously, just seeing what Taylor Rapp was able to do. I thought, in coverage, really the worst thing that happened to the Rams was letting Christian McCaffrey go off, but that was really out of the backfield. He's going to get his catch. It's a matter of how much how many yards he's going to take with it. He only had a long of 17 yards, so they didn't let him completely gash them. It was just a collective, just keep on dumping it off to Christian McCaffrey. He averaged 8.1 yards per catch, so they didn't let him absolutely go off. But DJ Moore in this one, very surprising with him. I know they ruled Cam Newton. They gave Cam Newton the fumble on the backwards pass, but I'll tell you right now, I feel like DJ Moore could have done a better job of making that play, and I would have given DJ Moore 2 fumbles in this one, which receivers don't fumble very often, so this was not a great game for Moore, but he had 7 catches for 76 yards, kind of bounced back a little bit. One thing I gotta say, though, is Corey Littleton with his 14 tackles, he also kicked off the game with that forced fumble, and that was huge because right then and there, you're looking at Carolina. They're driving down the field, and they're looking like they're going to score. They're about in the red zone. Corey Littleton with the peanut punch punches the ball right out of DJ Moore's grasp, and then it chills there for a little bit. No one sees it, and he comes around and is able to pick it back up. So he got not only the forced fumble, but then he got the fumble recovery, which was huge. Johnny Hecker looked human in this one. He had a pretty bad punt, but actually, wait, no, he didn't. Because I just want to point this out because I know people were saying, man, Johnny Hecker really shanked that one. Well, he hit 168 yards, so let's acknowledge that. Also pretty cool, former camp leg, Michael Pilardi is the punter for Carolina. He was with the Rams a couple years back, but nonetheless, Johnny Hecker, guys, he actually had that punt that he shanked, quote unquote, was actually blocked. He had 2 blocks today, so there were 2 blocked punts, and that was kind of an anomaly. That's not something that you see from Coach Bones Fossil's unit. But that did happen, and Greg Zuerlein even missed a field goal, so it wasn't fully perfect there. All in all, I would really say you should be impressed with the way the defense played. 5 hits on the quarterback, 3 pass breakups, 4 tackles for loss, 3 sacks, 71 tackles. I think this is a good turnout. And again, I know people were looking for the 40 points and, putting up a lot of points and, making a statement and having Goff go off. But, at the end of the day, a win's a win, and especially when you're on the road. So next week's test, I think, is the biggest, obviously. Week 2, this is already a tiebreaker game for, the number 1 seed in the NFC. Albeit it might seem unfair, they have to play week 2 because they could be completely different. But, hey, that's the way it is, and it's not always fair. The Patriots aren't even playing a playoff team within the first 8 games of their schedule. So, again, it's not always fair. With that being said, I do think that the Rams not only can take a lot away from this game, but I think that it's going to help them, propel them for the Saints game. Had they blown out the Panthers, I might have been a little worried about the Saints game. this kind of gives them some edge, right? They did not blow the Panthers out by any means. I think they absolutely outplayed them. I don't think the score should have been as close as it was, due to the blocked punt and, obviously the miscues in the red zone. If they obviously, converted those, that could have been really bad for Carolina. But at the end of the day, you beat a good team, a team that's probably going to be in the playoff hunt until week 17. Whether they make it, who knows? That's up in the air, but this is a good football team. You beat them on the road, and you were able to hold off their 24-point outburst in the second half. So, it was 13-3 going in the half, and they had a 24-point outburst in the second half, and you're able to hold that off. You're able to get Todd Gurley going a little bit, but not give him too many carries, and you're able to escape this one with not only a win but injury-free. So at the end of the day, this is a big win for the Rams. Something that will kind of go unnoticed, will go unsaid, will go underrated. But these are wins that are huge. Even the win last year against the Raiders where they started off slow, that was a pretty big win. Just to do that and, on the road, it's hard opening up the season on the road. I mean, you saw other teams. I mean, we'll go around the league too. I don't even care. I mean, rapid reaction, I'll just do that and then we'll go around the league because why not? Seattle had a hard time at home against Cincinnati. Okay. Chicago at home lost to Green Bay 10-3. Cleveland at home got blown out by Tennessee 43-13, the team that people were saying could, be the AFC champions this year. I mean, Miami, and I'm not saying Miami's good or anything like that, but they gave up 59 points at home. The Jets forced 4 turnovers on Josh Allen, and they lost 16-17 at home. I mean, Tampa Bay 17-31 against San Francisco at home. They lost. There was a tie, Arizona and Detroit. The thing is, the NFL is so unpredictable. Lamar Jackson threw for 5 touchdowns. I've been one of the biggest Lamar Jackson fans since his days at Louisville. I told you guys he would be the best quarterback in that draft. I took a lot of flack because obviously you look at Baker Mayfield and, it's kind of hard to justify that he's better than Baker Mayfield, but today he looked a little bit better than Baker Mayfield with his 5 touchdowns, his perfect passer rating, his 324 yards, is only missing 3 throws all game over Baker Mayfield's 3 interceptions and a blowout at home and not his blowout. So, I think it's just a very unpredictable league. But you know what? And I'll say this forever. These are games that the Rams don't win in the Fisher era. And I'm not hating on Jeff Fisher, but with Sean McVay, the Rams never get blown out. When they lose, they're close. They don't lose these games very often. When they're getting blown out, they come back. They make it a game. It always comes down to the wire. So, to have that kind of coach and that kind of game plan and, constantly not really giving up on the game, I mean, it's really going to bode well. And that's why I think the Rams are going to be really good this season, and they just obviously need to stay healthy, and they come out with week 1 staying healthy. I mean, I was really, just going around the league, I was really impressed. Rookie TJ Hawkinson, guy that I really like, tight end out of Iowa, 8th overall pick in the draft. He goes off for the Lions. He had over 100 yards and a touchdown in a tie. Sammy Watkins, former Ram, 3 touchdowns. 3. Over 200 yards receiving for the Chiefs. I mean, you got to kind of be happy for him, right? Guy's dealt with a ton of injuries. Maybe, the way he left the Rams wasn't the best, but, I mean, that's still impressive. Dalvin Cook, it was good to see him in Minnesota. He has really had a hard time staying healthy, but he ran for 2 touchdowns. It was good to see the Jets, Le'Veon Bell. He was back. He had a really good game. Caught a touchdown and caught a 2-point conversion. Just somebody that, obviously he held out all of last year. Wasn't like my favorite decision of the year, but, he's handled it well, with the Steelers fans. Obviously, you can look at what Antonio Brown did and, kind of rooting for Bell here on out. It was cool to see him out there. Unfortunately, the Jets didn't get the W for him, but, Tennessee, seeing Marcus Mariota fully healthy, seeing Delaney Walker fully healthy, team could be interesting, definitely interesting. I don't think that they're going to be, a barn burner, but who knows? I mean, I was really high on them a couple years ago, and it looked like that was the year, and then Mariota got hurt. So, you really just don't know. And again, that's why the NFL is so predictable. How about Deshaun Jackson, right? Comes back to the Eagles, has a huge game. I believe he had 2 touchdowns. Eagles win. It seems weird that he's back in Philly, but it seems, he's good for him, I guess. And, Terry McLaurin, how about him? The rookie has over 100 yards and a touchdown for Washington. Case Keenum looked good. Hey, they were in that game. Washington had a chance to win that football game on the road. Would have been a huge way to kick off the season. How about Jacoby Brissett? Everybody was saying how the Colts have no chance. The world is over. They didn't win the football game, but they took it to overtime. 24-16. Jacoby Brissett goes down the field, and they get the 2-point conversion. That was on Brissett. And unfortunately, Brissett and the Colts didn't get a chance to even see the ball because Austin Eckler and the Chargers took it right down their throat, and they scored, and the game was over. Seattle and Cincinnati, 21-20. DK Metcalf looked good. Chris Carson looks like a monster, but how about Andy Dalton? I give this guy so much, so much hate. And I'm not even hating on the guy personally, but I've just never been a really big fan of his. He went over 400 yards. He doesn't have AJ Green. But man, John Ross looked really good in that one. And, former Ram Zach Taylor, man, he looks like he might be onto something there in Cincinnati. Whether or not that was a problem more for the Seattle Seahawks or that was Cincinnati, you don't go into Seattle, at Quest Field and how loud that environment is, and you don't really go in and win. The Rams do, but other teams really don't, and Cincinnati really had a chance. There was, a couple calls that were blown, but they had a chance at the end, so props to them. Arizona, Detroit, again, I mentioned TJ Hawkinson. Stafford looked really good. Darrell Bevel looks, just like the guy he was in Seattle, just not making the right play calls and really costing his team. And, Detroit, they were up 24-6, and they let Arizona back in it. And Arizona came back, and they were led by a guy who was dead in the water to start the game, but really rose to the occasion late in the game, and that's Kyler Murray, a guy the Rams won't see until later on in the year, and they'll see him really quickly back, almost back-to-back games. Kyler Murray looked really good, guys. I mean, I'm just going to say that right now. Looked very poised. His play style does not work for every quarterback, but I was definitely impressed with what he was able to do. And I'm excited to see, Kyler Murray's development. Hopefully he doesn't torch the Rams, but I'm definitely excited to see what he can do. And how about Larry Fitzgerald, the ageless wonder? He was big in that game, and man, it just seems like you have another Frank Gore out there that just doesn't ever need to retire. And the way Kyler Murray plays, who knows if Larry Fitzgerald needs to retire. Dallas and the Giants game, Eli Manning didn't play bad, guys. It's 35-17 final score, but Eli Manning does not deserve the blame. He actually played extremely well, and the score really doesn't indicate what it could have been. Obviously, Saquon is Saquon, Dallas, on the other hand, they got great contributions out of Dak Prescott, who was, really, this contract was imminent, this contract extension, and we knew he was going to surpass Jared Goff because it's really not about, talent per se. It's about, kind of the stock game of, when and where. And so now, Dak Prescott's going to get his extension. Now he's just going to surpass Goff, obviously, and that'll be that. But a huge day for him, going over 400 yards, just definitely impressive, and a guy that I have definitely, I I have been very skeptical of, but he went, 400 yards, 4 touchdowns. I don't care who you go against. That's a good day against an NFL football team. Michael Gallup and Amari Cooper go over 100 yards receiving. Huge days for those guys. Evan Ingram on the other side of the ball for the Giants went over 100 yards. So, I mean, obviously, it could have been better for the Giants, but I like the way Eli played. I really like the way Dak Prescott played. Dallas could be a little scary, moving forward. The final game, because I'm not going to preview any of the games that didn't play, but the point is the final game, you have the 49ers and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I just want to point out the NFC West almost went 4-0 in that game. So they go 3-0-1, 3 wins from the Rams, the Seahawks, and the 49ers, and a tie for the Arizona Cardinals. So that was kind of a bummer. I really hate ties, and I thought, really Arizona or Detroit deserved to win that game. Detroit lost the game. Really in my mind, that like when you are up 24-6 late in the game and it ends up being a tie, it's kind of a loss on your part. Arizona really should be happy about the tie. They did so much to come back in that one, but the 49ers really didn't look that good. Jimmy Garoppolo struggled, 166 yards, a touchdown, interception. They didn't really get anything going on in the running game. Tevin Coleman left the game. George Kittle was the leading receiver, but really only had 54 yards receiving. There were fumbles. Obviously Deebo Samuel had a fumble. It just wasn't thoroughly impressed with the 49ers, but hey, they got the win on the road, so you can't really blame them. It was really on the part of 3 miscues, 3 interceptions from Jameis Winston, who at this point I feel like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers need to move on from. I just don't think he's the answer. Chris Godwin came down with a touchdown. Aside from that, Mike Evans was really held in check. And Ronald Jones is the biggest story, I think, out of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, because while they lose this game, they might have found Ronald Jones. Ronald Jones might have found himself. This is somebody that I watched a ton at USC, very talented, obviously very talented running back, but he just was in his head last year. It just didn't seem like it was there. Looks like he took over the starting job after this game. I know it sounds crazy, but Peyton Barber isn't, an all-world running back to the point where you could say, well, this isn't enough to take over as the guy. Ronald Jones ran with, obviously with strength, with authority, just physicality. This is somebody that, again, was in his head last year. He looked so confident, ran for 5.8 yards per carry, 13 carries for 75 yards, couldn't get in the end zone, and had he gotten in the end zone, it might have saved, it honestly might have saved this game, but he was huge in this one, and, unfortunately the Bucs, fall to 0-1, but I think they found Ronald Jones, and Ronald Jones may have found himself, and that might be the biggest win of this game for Tampa Bay. Obviously, Houston and New Orleans will go at it tomorrow night at 7:10 p.m. Eastern Time, and Oakland and Denver will go at it at 10:20 p.m. Eastern Time, a game that I don't think is going to get a ton of viewership since it's so late at night, and not really for the... Of course, not for the Rams fans, not for you guys, because obviously on the West Coast it's 7:20, and kind of bizarre, the 7:10 game is 4:10 your time. So, the doubleheader to start off the year, I don't know how I feel about it. I kind of like just the 8 o'clock, 8:30 slot, but that's just me. Should be interesting. I'm not really fond of Houston, and I think New Orleans playing at home, this could be an actual blowout. But who knows? They added Laramie Tunsil and they added Kenny Stills, so we'll see what happens with Houston. Worth noting that the Rams are playing New Orleans, and they're coming off a short week. That is an advantage to the Rams. Rams get to play on a normal Sunday. They get to go through their progressions, obviously, throughout the week, prepare, and they get to obviously play at home. New Orleans, they play at home, but they play on Monday Night Football, and they lose a day of preparation, and then they have to go on the road. The last time New Orleans played on the road, they lost to the Rams. The Rams actually won the rubber match last year. It was 1-1. The Rams won in 2017, at home against the Saints 2018 during the regular season. We all know they lost in the Superdome, and then they beat them in the Superdome to go to the Super Bowl. So now the Rams are up 2-1 in this Sean McVay, Sean Payton series. We'll see where this goes in the game 4 of the series. Obviously different players, but it should be exciting. I think this is going to do it, guys. Definitely just wanted to try something new. I know Alexis really, it's hard for her to make a show like this. I'm recording this kind of late at night, but I just really wanted to do a rapid reaction, which ended up being more than a rapid reaction, kind of around the league type of thing, guys that really stood out to me. And I think we'll do that. If you guys want to let me know what you guys want to hear in this rapid reaction bit, let me know. Alexis and I will be on Monday. We'll be recording on Monday. Might come out Monday, probably late Monday, early Tuesday. And once that happens, then you probably won't have a podcast until, we'll try and record one. We're going to be in LA. It's going to be a little difficult, but we'll try and get some cool stuff for you. We'll be doing some lives. If you guys don't know our schedule, after every game, you can find Alexis Kraft on Instagram. Every single Rams game, you can find her on Instagram. She's going to do a recap show of that. And then you can find me, Jake Ellenbogen, on Facebook Live. And, I'll be doing a live after every Rams game as well, just on Facebook. So that's how we decided to do it. Obviously, for all of your Rams news and analysis, you want to go over to downtownrams.com. And guys, thank you so much. This is going to be so much fun. I cannot wait for the season. I know you guys can't wait either. The Rams win 30-27 on to LA for not only the Rams, but for the Downtown Rams podcast. And hope to see you guys there. Don't be a stranger. Reach out. You can DM us on all social media platforms, or if you have our personal accounts, you can do that as well. Thank you so much, guys, and take care.